Hi, I'm Hazel. It's Saturday today, which makes it time to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I have been up to, and highlight a hopefully helpful add-on. This week, 11.2 was announced right on the heels of patch 11.17. I think 11.17 came out, and then the following day they announced patch 11.2. They're calling this one Ghosts of Koresh, and we are heading to Koresh, which is the ethereal homeworld where the ethereals as well as the Shadowlands brokers are originally from. Blizzard did a bunch of developer interviews, they posted their own announcement, and the PTR is also up, so we know quite a bit already about the next patch to WoW. The Veiled Market of Tazavesh, which you might remember from the Tazavesh Mega Dungeon in Shadowlands, has been brought to Koresh to serve as our player hub. That's going to be our new base city for patch 11.2. I'm really excited about this because it's such a phenomenally detailed zone that I always really wanted to poke around in, but in the past we've always been there in kind of like a mythic key capacity or just like a hard dungeon capacity where you can't exactly ask your friends to wait for you while you go look at doodads. As far as the zone goes, it's ethereal, it is spacey, there's going to be purple and lasers. It has been confirmed in a Mr. GM interview as well as directly on the PTR that we will be able to fly on Koresh, so skyriding is in. No word on whether we're going to ever be able to drive our cars again, but depending on who you're talking to, that may not be a great loss. In this patch, we are going to be getting an artifact cloak called the Reshii Wraps, which I swear sounds like something that you would get on Postmates in LA. Being in the back slot, the Reshii Wraps should not interfere with your tier set bonus at least, although I know some of us may need to recraft and embellish in order to get around that slot. And they are going to have not only cosmetic appearances as you upgrade them and stats, but it's also going to have a situational effect where it can phase you into an energy form. So depending on the situation, that could mean different things. Within the raid, they were talking about how we can use the Reshii Wraps to phase into energy to fly around the different waypoints. During the first fight of the raid, we're going to be able to use the Reshii Wraps to phase into energy to manage certain mechanics. And then out in the world of Koresh, you can use the Reshii Wraps for phase diving, where you can kind of phase the zone into a different version with energy creatures, different world quests, some new enemies to fight. I think the closest and most recent analogy I can make to this would be the storm phase of the Siren Isle, where you're phasing into a different version of the zone with some different things to do, but it's still basically the same zone, just like another layer on top of it. That's kind of what phase diving sounds like. There will be a new delve season, and there is one brand new delve being added to the pool. And of course, we have a new end of season delve boss. So where we had Zekvir in the first season and then Underpin in the second season, in season 3, we will be fighting Nexus Princess Ky'veza, freshly off of her defeat in Anubar Palace. We're going to be fighting her as the big delve bad of the season. I'm very excited to go toe-to-toe with her one-on-one. Just from the very short bit of this fight that we saw in the preview, it looks insane, so I'm excited about that. Anything that's not kicking bombs, I think, would have made me happy. We also, of course, got the raid announcement, and they talked a little bit more about what's going on in there. The new raid is called Manaforge Omega, and raid testing is happening next week, starting Thursday, June the 26th and 7th. Mythic raid testing is going to be the following week. So raid testing happening soon and in a very condensed schedule. Hopefully I'll see some of you out there on PTR with me trying out these bosses. The cool thing about this raid that we haven't seen in a long time is that there's actually an optional boss, which I can't remember the last time we had a truly optional boss in the raid, but there will be one in this 8-boss raid, although it seems to drop gear that people are really going to want, so I'm questioning how optional it really is. Your cloak will also have a combat proc effect, and the items that drop off the optional boss can increase the proc rate on that, so it seems pretty important since you're going to be wearing the cloak anyways. Something we'll have to poke around with. There's also going to be a new dungeon, which canonically takes place after the raid story-wise. Unlock-wise, it unlocks at the same rate you would expect it to. Normal, Heroic, and Mythic 0 will be available right away, and then it's going to, I think, be joining the Mythic Key rotation along with the rest of the dungeons. It's called Ecodome Aldani, and it is a 3-boss dungeon. Looking forward to trying that out. And speaking of the dungeons, we have our dungeon pool announced for Season 3 of Mythic Plus. So we are going to be going through Halls of Atonement from Revendreth. Kind of excited about this. I'm hoping they take a tuning pass at it to increase the visibility of various mechanics like they have been doing. I think that fighting the last boss with his flingy statues is going to be a lot more manageable if it kind of shows you on the ground where they're going. Keeping my fingers crossed for that. There's also both wings of Tazavesh, and then we are going back to Arakara, Dawnbreaker, Priory, and Floodgate. So when you add in the new Ecodome Aldani, that altogether makes 8 dungeons. I am, like I said, excited to see Halls of Atonement back. I might change my mind on that one. That might cause me regret, but for now I'm happy to see it. Tazavesh had some great fights, so I think that should be fun. As far as Floodgate and Priory go, though, I'm kind of spoiled. And doing them just in back-to-back seasons feels like a lot, because we just did them. I am aware that it's funny to be, like, peeved about that, because we used to do the same dungeon pool for an entire expansion straight, and now I'm cranky that 2 of them are repeated from the last season. But at least I guess we'll be freshly practiced at them. Other things in dungeon updates, one thing that they actually put in the patch preview was this new thing called Waystones, where they're going to have visual indicators both in the dungeon as well as on the mini-map showing you where the spawn points are in a dungeon as you're going through it. So as you continue through a dungeon and you kill bosses and unlock checkpoints, you'll see where that checkpoint is from a big stone floating in the dungeon, as well as on your map. So you don't have to be asking your friends where you res if you release. You can just kind of check your map and find out. I think that's going to make it much easier for me to remember when I should and should not release my character. Although, you know, we're not going to like go into dungeons and die or anything. That would never happen. Another thing that we found out about dungeons that's kind of in the pipeline, this was mentioned in an interview with Wowhead, lever penalties. This is in very early development. They're still talking about it in kind of conceptual terms, but it sounded like it was on the slate for 11.2. Basically, what they're saying is that in a Mythic Plus Keystone, to help deter people leaving before the run is over, they want to add in the ability to trigger a vote to abandon the dungeon if it's not going well, so that if everybody votes and agrees that it's time to wrap it up and go home and feed the cats, then everybody can leave with no penalties. But if the group does not agree to quit and then someone leaves anyways, and somebody is doing that repeatedly, that person may be marked as a deserter. To be clear, you would have to abandon more than just the one run in order to get the mark. And what that mark does is it shows up on your name in LFG, indicating to other players that you are someone that tends to leave keys, and make it clear to people that this is a player that is liable to quit at the first sign of trouble because they've done it before. They also talked about having kind of a redemption system where you could clear that mark by finishing keys and by using the voting system correctly. People were theorizing that people with the mark will have to end up teaming up with other people with the mark to do finished runs to like clear their marks. It is early days on the discussions of this, so we don't have all the details about how it will work, but I think it is a good incentive to be pursuing. I've definitely pugged a couple of keys that have been brought short by somebody just kind of vanishing after one wipe. You're never going to have a perfect system, especially with something like this, but I do think that it's a step in the right direction, and I'm hoping it has a real impact on how many keys are finished at the end of the day. And then a couple other updates that I want to rapid fire get through that I found from the patch notes. One of them is there will be new gathering mats to collect on Koresh, as well as the ability to trade them for original materials. So you can get like new herbs that you'd be able to trade for original War Within herbs if you wanted those instead. There will be a new and better healing potion that alchemists can make, so a buffed healing potion for Season 3, as well as a new potion called Umbra Essentia that mimics a shadow meld, so it would be on your potion cooldown, but it would allow you to basically shadow meld without being a night elf, which I understand for some Mythic Plus groups has become kind of a necessity. Not a huge deal for most levels of play, but for top-end players this will help them not have to be night elves in strategies that necessitate shadow meld. And then my favorite thing to come out of the 11.2 PTR so far, and the thing that I am most excited about, is the /lean emote, where your character can lean back, perhaps against a wall, perhaps not, it's up to you. These are animations that have been added to the game over time for the last couple of years. NPCs first began to lean around BFA, and in 11.2 you will now be able to lean wherever you like. I don't know why this excites me so much. For some reason, I really want to stand by a dungeon keystone when I'm summoning people and just lean against it waiting for them to load in. And I couldn't tell you why I want that. It's not like I'm impatient. It's just, you know, maybe you want to have a nice lean. And then in the live game this week, Midsummer Fire Festival starts today as this video comes out on Saturday, June the 21st. I don't have all the details dug up for that just yet, but I shall take a look for them shortly. The event lasts until the 30th, and word on the street is that there's going to be new transmog to collect, so time to get the, your Candy Buckets add-ons or your Handy Notes Fire Festival out to mark all the bonfires on the map and fly around. And then there are some hotfixes coming to the disc belt, not in just yet, but announced to be coming with this upcoming weekly reset. And what this should do is it should bring the Charged Bolts proc back down to reality, as well as buffing up a couple of the stat abilities for the disc belt to be more competitive. Blizzard states that they're not trying to completely ruin Charged Bolts, but would rather it not be the default choice for everybody, which I think is a fairly noble goal. As far as what I've been up to this week, busy doing some house hunting stuff in real life that's been keeping me going. On WoW, mainly just checking out the new stuff. I got my belt set up, I did the lore walking, and actually really enjoyed that. The Turbulent Time Waves started, and I did a bunch of that, and it turns out that it was bugged in such a way where if you just continue to queue time walking, it eventually can spit you out the mount. I couldn't tell you exactly how to replicate that because they might patch it, and because it's clearly not intended for you to get the Turbulent Time Waves mount on the first week, but I can say that I didn't do anything funky. I really just did a bunch of time walking on one character, and it was eventually like, here, I have a mount. So, it doesn't seem to be working as intended, but I'm not complaining. And then the add-on highlight for this week, I want to show you, in case you have not seen it, Can I Mog It? The main purpose of this add-on is to mark gear with a symbol indicating whether or not you have collected the transmog. This is great for quickly spotting appearances that you could learn, particularly from a BOE that you pick up, or if you are shopping off of a vendor, can show you which things you still need, especially because Can I Mog It can now also show you with that indicator whether or not you have a toy, pet, or mount collected. This is one of those add-ons that I feel kind of itchy about if I don't have it turned on. Like if I look in my bags and all of my gear icons don't have check marks on them, I'm like, but how am I supposed to know if I have them or not? You want me to mouse over each one individually? That's just unreasonable. I like this one. I keep it on all the time, and it is the first thing that I notice that is not running if my add-ons get turned off for some reason. And that has been the week. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a question or you want to say hi, feel free to pop by my stream. I am live on Twitch 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday, 9 a.m. through noon Pacific time, unless I have to leave unexpectedly to go look at a house, which happens sometimes. I appreciate your company, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.